Ever hear anyone make the claim that white people are indigenous to Africa, or that the first man would have been a white man? Yeah, I know, YouTube's filled to the brim with ignorant and uneducated people saying just that sort of stupidity. Well, it's time to give these suckers some black truth, and you better believe it's gonna hurt. But first, we have to go back to the beginning, and that means going back to Africa. Africa is where all human life began. Eurocentrics had insisted for hundreds of years that Europe was the cradle of humanity, and when that lie predictably fell apart, they switched it to Asia. Like all Eurocentric claims, there wasn't a single shred of evidence to back up this idiocy, but it made whites feel good, and that was all that mattered. Until 1987, when Dr. Rebecca Kahn wrote a stunning article for the magazine Nature. Well, it was stunning for the Eurocentrics, because in it she declared that mitochondrial DNA made it clear that all humans can be traced back to Africa, with a woman who lived about 200,000 years ago in the area of Ethiopia, Kenya, and Tanzania. Though some scholars already knew this.
We are able to say scientifically today, to say with certainty that mankind was born in Africa, on the latitude more or less of Kenya, and that area which comprises Kenya, Ethiopia, and Tanzania. It is in this region, that is this region in Kenya, where we find all of the most ancient evolutionary information. Nature created 6 specimens of man before we got to man as we know him today. All fossils that have been found outside of Africa have been found under close analysis to be much more recent than those found in Africa. And no other continent in the world has the complete series of fossils indicating the 6 specimens that I spoke of before. Nature doesn't do anything by chance, and it's for that reason that humanity, mankind that was born in a sub-equatorial region, was given melanin to protect its skin, and it's for that reason that it is clear, it is certain that first man had to be a black man.
Remember, at the time humanity arose a 250,000 years ago, the Earth was still going through the last ice age. Europe was far colder than anything people can imagine today. And for a warm-blooded creature like man to have begun and survived during an ice age, he would have had to have originated in the hottest region on the planet. There's simply no other way. Even racists like Dr. James Watson, the Nobel Prize-winning geneticist who discovered the DNA double helix, had to admit man came from Africa in his book, DNA, The Secret of Life.
Why was it not possible for mankind to have been born in many parts of the earth?
That theory has a certain amount of, made a certain amount of sense. Not that it made good sense, but it made a certain amount of sense. It would explain that there are different peoples in different parts of the world with different characteristics. Nature never strikes twice in its evolution. It doesn't ever hit the same place 2 times. In the animal kingdom, you can see that throughout the evolution of animals, a being was created, and it either disappeared or changed somewhat, or a new being completely was created, but never the same being twice. And to remain strictly scientific, it doesn't make common sense to say that man was created twice.
So science had now answered where life began, and with whom. In Africa, with a black woman. So these 2 characters are just another example of Eurocentrics pretending to be something they're not in order to feel good about themselves. Kinda like these guys. Anthropologists say when these first people, these blacks, left the cradle of humanity, they almost all went northward. The primary branch of this migration moved into what is today Kenya, and then north into modern Ethiopia, and finally to the north of the continent, into what would become Kemet. This is what modern science says, and the ancient Egyptians agree. In the Hennefer Papyrus, the Egyptians declared that they came from where the Nile River begins, at the foothills of the Mountains of the Moon, where God Hapi dwells. We have two geographical identifiers here: mountains, plural, and the origin of the Nile. We'll do this carefully so the Euro clowns don't get lost. The Nile River is the only river on Earth that flows from south to north instead of north to south. It has two branches: the Blue Nile in the east, which originates in Ethiopia, and the White Nile, which originates in the area around Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. So, no matter which branch you choose, there's no denying that we are deep within Africa, where even the most delusional Euro clown wouldn't dare say white people might have come from. The Blue Nile cannot be what the Hennifer Papyrus was referencing, because its reservoir, Lake Tana, is so tiny, and there are no mountains there anyway. So it can't meet both of our requirements, without which it can't be the right answer. That only leaves the White Nile. Already we can see it's in a very promising and familiar neighborhood, the Great Lakes region of Central Africa, where man arose. It's also the location of the Ruwenzori Mountains. These are the foothills of the Ruwenzori Mountains in the foreground, and in the background you see the Ruwenzori Mountains themselves. The priest Hunefer described them accurately. Keep in mind, this is over 4,000 miles into the African interior. Small wonder the Egyptians were so proud of themselves. They felt they could accurately trace their roots back to the very dawn of humankind. Science has certainly confirmed this. Another bit of Euroclown stupidity: they keep talking about Africans as Hamites, and others talk about non-Negro Hamites. They have no idea what they're even talking about. They claim to base this on the Bible, but the Bible doesn't support any Hamite nonsense. The way the Euroclowns tell the story, Ham was the son of Noah, whom Noah cursed, saying his descendants would be the servants to the children of Ham's brothers. The Euroclowns seized upon this fable and tried to use it to promote the idea that slavery and colonialism were simply the fulfillment of divine prophecy. Only one small problem: the Hamite curse isn't in the Bible. Genesis 9:25, and he, Noah, said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants he shall be unto his brethren." Canaan! It doesn't say a word about Ham, and there is no version of the Bible where it reads Ham instead of Canaan. So, why isn't it called the Canaanite curse? Because Canaan, according to the Bible, was the progenitor of the Phoenicians. The Phoenician contributions to all of white civilization has been so vast that whites absolutely had to portray them as white European people, even if doing so thoroughly contradicted their precious Hamite curse. So yet again the Euroclowns have proven themselves to be liars. But for the sake of argument, let's say that God got confused with Noah's order and decided to curse all of Ham's sons just to make sure he got the right one. Anyway, Ham had 3 other sons: Mizraim, Put, and Cush. Mizraim allegedly gave rise to the Egyptians, white of course, and Put gave rise to the rest of the light-skinned North Africans, even though that was kinda redundant. So, that leaves us with Cush, who was Ham's firstborn son. One has to wonder why Noah didn't curse Ham directly, or his firstborn. Ham, who the Euroclowns insist was a white man, was supposed to be the ancestor of all blacks. They never explain exactly how that worked. In fact, they're not even sure if Ham's first son, Cush, was white or black. All they know is Cush was the father of the black ethnic groups, which kinda contradicts Ham being the father of all blacks, now doesn't it? Which means even if you believe Ham was cursed, the term Hamite still has no meaning. To further complicate matters, the Euroclowns aren't even clear on which of Cush's sons were Negro as opposed to being black-skinned white people. You know, Hamites. Or why only one of Ham's children became black and not the other 3, or what the difference is between a Hamite and a Negro anyway. So the term Hamite means nothing, and we can now see the Bible has been turned into a tool of white supremacy. But the Eurocentric cult wasn't done yet. In what amounts to a last gasp, they are now saying that even if Egypt was black, it was nothing compared to Greece, which, they say, was lily white. We'll see about that.